Okay, welcome back. Yes, we're still in chapter 13. I know, I know. It's a long chapter. The good news is this is the last video. We've got two sections to cover, so let's jump in. And I will tell you, we're going to talk about arrays of objects. And you're gonna feel like this is pretty similar to what you've done in the past, because it is. So, it's pretty self-explanatory as we're jumping into this section that you can obviously have an array of objects. So you can have an array of type inventory item, 40 of them, and we're going to call this array inventory. When we do that, the default constructor for all objects is used when the array is defined. However, you can also utilize one constructor for all the objects. So now we have, you can use the initializer to construct enough. Like in here, we've got 3 items. We're going to construct 3 of those, and we're going to call the constructor each time an object's created all 3 times. So the first object 0, is going to be an object with hammer. And object 1 will be of wrench. And in this, object 2 will be of pliers. If the constructor requires more than one argument, the initializer must take the form of a function call. So we know that we have a overloaded constructor. And so the interesting things about this is, again, it's of type inventory item. The name is going to be called inventory. It's going to have 3 items in it. And because of that, we're going to do the curly brackets with the semicolon at the end. But we're going to call each one with its own set of params. And so that's why there's 3 of these items, because we are making 3 objects for this array. And it's interesting is you don't have to use the same constructor. So we can do what we've done here, but we can utilize different constructors for each one. So we can use the one where we're just creating a hammer. And then the second one, we're using the overloaded, where we're creating a wrench with certain specs. And then the third one is just pliers. We're not using the overloaded constructor. Just like we've done it in the past, we use the brackets to say the position of the object, the dot, and then what in that object are we trying to make use of? What method or variable are we trying to make use of? So in this case, now we're doing cout of the, technically the third object, but index of 2. And we're going to say get units, which we just set the units to 30, so this should be 30. Here's some examples. And again, the good coding practices, which is that. And then we utilize the second, the overloaded constructor to create each of the objects. And then when we want to make use of it, we can sit in a loop here, and we know we have that hard code, not hard code, but we have it set as a constant up here. So that's good. And then we just sit in that loop that many times. And again, here is where we're using the counter as a pointer in the index. All right, this is the last section. And this section, you may want to take a look at the time of the video and write that down, because you may want to come back and listen to this portion of the video a second time. This is a little off topic, but it's one way that we can describe to other developers, other people, without actually showing them the code. We can show them what the code looks like. And it's through using the Unified Modeling Language, or UML. So there you go. UML stands for Unified Modeling Language. The UML provides a set of standard diagrams for graphically depicting object-oriented systems, and this is great. UML is still used quite a bit, not as maybe as much as it used to. My belief on that is because a lot of people have gone to the Agile methodology, and there is somewhat of a misnomer with Agile that there's supposed to be no documentation, which is not correct. It's supposed to be just in time documentation. So instead of creating a whole function spec document, or whatever your organization may call it, I've seen them called FDDs, I've seen them called TDDs, technical design document. There's all kinds of things, and it's these 100-page documents that most developers will only read about 10 of those pages anyways. Instead of doing all that, it's that just-in-time documentation, which means instead of having something with 100 pages, you will end up with something that just has 10 pages. But because of this, because we've gone to this Agile, this misnomer of no documentation, I feel like UML is not used nearly as much as it used to, but it is still used, and it is worthwhile to know it, and it's definitely worthwhile for this class because we may use UML just to describe what your class should look like for an assignment. Additionally, when you do your final project, you should describe in your documentation, remember you're going to turn in some documentation, a good way to impress the professor is to throw a few UML diagrams in there of some of your classes. So that way I know that you can get your message across to another developer. So for UML, you'll notice that essentially it's a box, and which I wanted to show you this because it really is a box, and then you just happen to have the title up here, and then you have a section for vars, and then for functions. This kind of makes it look more like a swim lane kind of deal, but I do really truly want you to understand. You'll see here, hopefully in the next couple of slides, that like this title bar is pretty slim, but then you have all your vars and then all your functions, and oftentimes you'll see a UML diagram that, again, it's just the title, and maybe you have something here because you only have a couple of vars, but then you have function after function after function. Aha, see? Rectangle, very small title box. And in this case, they only have two vars, and so they put the two vars, and then the rest are functions, and they put down at the bottom. But Professor Waits, I see that they have it over here to resemble this, but how do they know that this was supposed to be private and this was supposed to be public? That's a really good question. In fact, it's on the next slide. And what you'll notice is if it's a minus, it's a private. And if they put a plus outside, up front, it's a public. So that's how, in this, we're going to say these two vars are private because of the minus signs. And yet all of these are public because of the plus signs. All right. We're doing good. We're doing good. But again, if you take a look at this, you still don't have enough information because you know what the public and private is now, but what is the type of width? Is it a double? Or is it an int? Heck, is it a char? Well, UML has a way to describe that, and that is you put the colon, and then you put the type. So this, by the way, is for vars. This is going to be more for functions. And again, we're saying there's a variable here, and it's of type W. And this method, by the way, this function is public. Hold in, we're almost there. Finally, what about the return type? Aha! We can specify that once again by putting another colon and then the return type out there. And you get used to seeing this because again, you're going to know whatever's inside of the parentheses is going to be what's incoming, and then the outside piece is what's outgoing. So let's now take a look at all that we have, see if we can make a little bit more sense of this. So we've got a rectangle. That's going to be the name of our class. Now remember, on these UMLs, I could give you this UML, and you can now create a class to a specification. Okay, so that said, come on, pen, don't fail me now. Okay, so with that said, we know we now have, so if you were given this UML, you would create a class called rectangle. You would have two variables, one called width, one's called length. Both of them are private, and they're both of type double. Then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 methods. Here is the name of the methods along with their incoming parameters and what they're going to return, and that they're that didn't help. So let me see if I can reset. So again, here's the name, but this means it's public. So again, it's a public function of set width with the incoming param of W. It's a type double, and it returns a bool. Same thing here, a public of set length. It's got a variable name of len. It's a type double, and you're going to return a bool. Here, we've got no incoming parameters, but all of these have a return type of double. Now finally, how do we show constructors and destructors? Well, in your class, in your UML, you will have them listed just like you do any other function. This is for constructors, by the way. And the only thing is you're not going to have a name like this is a set description. Instead, it's going to be the class's name. And that's how, when you're reading this, you automatically know that these are constructors. To know what is a deep constructor, we just put the tilde out there. So that's how we know that this is the D constructor, because of that. Okay, we finally came to the end of this chapter. I know it was a very long chapter. If you've got questions, shoot over a message to me and I will answer them. If you need to, please go back and watch some of these videos more than once. Make sure you understand them. And One other thing too is to make sure that starting in this um, this particular module, you only have one assignment. One of the nice reasons for that is this is where you may want to start putting some effort to your final project. The way to do that is to go watch the video that describes how to do your final project. So until then, I hope you have a great time, good day, and we'll see you then. Thanks.